Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're viewing this. I hope it's not 2 o'clock in the morning and you're on a deadline. That always makes things a little more stressful. This is the last essay for the course. And in many ways, it's a culminating assignment in that much of what we've done during the semester leads to this assignment. It's not any larger than the other assignments, but I think you'll find that it partakes of the qualities of the other assignments and sort of sums them up in your own story or the story of someone that you care about. A trauma narrative is about the trauma in the lives of yourself or others, and it's a story. Now, when we go through the list of criteria for assessment, you'll notice that one of the things I talk about in that list is that you don't actually have to write a short story to make this happen. This is an essay. Um, and the narrative, the idea of the narrative is that you tell of an incident. You can pick an example or something that happens to someone that is traumatic and talk about that event and its consequences and what happens to the relationships of people. Um, for example, with the survivor networks I work with, there might be, say, a sudden cardiac arrest survivor who um, has a profound personality change and is unrecognizable to his family in terms of his personality. These sorts of personality changes take place in all kinds of situations where there's oxygen deprivation and brain injury, and many times requires an awful lot of adjustments with families and relations. But that's just one sort of dramatic example of the way things happen. I think that those of you who know of people who are cancer survivors or people who have gone through, families that have gone through illness or an injury, will understand how that trauma affects them. Um, Also, tracing for students, for example, I think the idea of post-traumatic stress is very important. It affects your life, whether you're a veteran or whether you've had stresses in your lives that have affected you. These are very important um, to coming to understand them, and in some ways, through understanding and writing about them, to gain some control over this situation is very good for us. Um, it also makes compelling and interesting writing that other people relate to because we're all familiar with stress. As I may have mentioned, the idea of post-traumatic stress um, is common to everyone. We all have it in one form or another. It's just that there's a D at the end for those situations in which the person's lives and the lives of those around them are affected in such a way as for it to be um, debilitating or disrupted or uh, a syndrome that creates problems so that the person can't live um, well, and it is therefore the disorder in post-traumatic stress disorder. Things are disorderly. So writing about stress and those situations where stress has affected people is one way. Finding a story of someone who was put under a stressful situation, and then looking again, looking at the consequences of that and how they have dealt with it, and or how you have dealt with it, is very important. Again, you can write about yourself as an autobiography, or you can write about others as a biography in this assignment. Um, Again, there's examples and content under essay examples. You can take a look at what others of your peers and students have done, and I think that's always helpful to see how they've managed that writing task and what they've seemed to have gotten out of it. So I would suggest you do that, and that you go about this again. You go about this with the idea that the word length has nothing to do with this. I think you'll find. It says, I use the old 500 800 as a kind of way of getting people to pare down things. It'd be impossible actually to write this in 800 words, I think, because once you tell the story, you've already got about 800 words, probably. I mean, the incident when you explain it, it's just harder to write this in a short space. Also, if you add pictures, if you use the things you've learned about writing and multimedia kinds of things during the semester, it will also change the length of the piece. So the length of the piece doesn't bother me much, and it shouldn't you. I think what you want to do is make sure that you sort of cover the areas of telling about an incident and then explaining the consequences of that incident to yourself and others, and that will put this in perspective. Um, in storytelling, I often tell people, it's really a trap to get caught in a direct chronological situation. That is, I woke up this morning and brushed my teeth, and then I, went out and fed the dog, and then I mean, it's endless the details you can add to that. So you want to pick a compressed moment of time. Um, uh, if I were going to write about a daily routine, which probably isn't the best sort of thing for this kind of thing, although it could be. Many routines are stressful, honest, but you could be writing about waking up and the experience of getting ready to go to work or go to school, and the kind of stresses involved in thinking about all the things you have to do during the day and your schedule and the implications of success or failure on a particular test. I mean, all that stuff is really can take place in your head, and it can also take place in a short amount of time. Maybe an amount of time it takes to drink a cup of tea or coffee. Yeah, I have some things going on in my head right now too, but never mind. So if I go to the checklist, you're going to tell a story using a description about the character, the setting. I mean, the incident you write about is the story. Don't think about this as having to write an official short story or something. Although you may, if you want to, if that fulfills the assignment for you. And then the trauma narrative is a description of an event that is traumatic. The writer may or may not have written a complete short story. It is not necessary. Um, the writer writes an autobiography or biography of trauma. Again, I stress you can write about somebody else if you don't want to write about something in your own life. The working with the 9 joys and 9 discomforts. I hope you've looked at the presentations on those in under D2L. If you go to under content, you'll find 9 joys and 9 discomforts, and there's two sort of PowerPoint presentations there about them. They give you a context and language to talk about trauma. And so I've sort of made it part of the assignment that you should use one or two of those. For example, a discomfort might be that survivors often feel that they are a ghost in the world or that they are exiled from people. And one of the joys might be just the joy simply of having a body and being alive. There are 9 of those in each case. Totally arbitrary, I know, in many ways, but it seemed to me that 9 worked pretty well. So please look at those as part of your preparation if you haven't done so already. And then, of course, as with the other essays, you're going to be citing your sources. And we've already talked often about authentic, whole, and empathetic writing. Again, you can find that sort of discussion in the syllabus about what that means. But this is sort of the moment, the time when you bring everything together. And I want to wish you the best of all things for having been in the class and for allowing me to participate with you in this. Thanks a lot.